Welcome to Beyond the Closing Table with Setco Services. In this podcast, we delve into the world of real estate and explore what happens beyond the closing table. Join us for insightful discussions and expert interviews that will change the way you see real estate transactions. Welcome to Beyond the Closing Table. I'm George Brandon Jr., sponsored by Setco Services. Today, I have the pleasure of Dr. Bill Burden.
Oh, good to see you, George.
Welcome, Dr. Bill. So, intro, a doctor, plastic surgeon, musician, artist, songwriter, author, and most importantly, my good friend. So, Bill, I'm excited to have you. We've been trying to make this connection for a minute now. I always like to start off people's background, how they got to where they are.
Yeah.
You definitely have a very diverse background. I learned more about in some of your writings recently, and maybe we can delve into that. But where'd you grow up?
Mostly in the Virginia, North Carolina area. You know, when you grow up in that area of the country, it's very different than the deeper South. You're sort of in the mid zone.
Yeah.
So it was very conservative, and it was farmland.
Yeah.
And when you grow up on the farm, it's very different than when you grow up in the city. But I think what was unique about it was, you know, I grew up in the 60s and 70s. And when you grow up in in that time zone, in the 60s and early 70s, more people were in the country, so to speak, farmers. And then after the mid 70s, more people were urban dwellers. And I was just like everybody else, started off on the farm, then moved to the city.
Okay. So tell us about farm life. How long were you there?
Well, up until about middle school.
Okay.
And so when you know, those are really formative years when you're a kid, especially when you're, you know, right before you hit your puberty, you're just having fun, hanging out on the farm, learning everything you need to know from your parents, grandparents.
Right.
And you don't have a whole lot of friends because there's not a whole lot of people. So your friends are really tight and you do a lot of stuff, you know, You hunt, you fish, you go out and you work. And that's the thing. You work.
Yeah. Well, in some of the readings I've read through, you were very emphatic about your work. You also said, did your grandparents have more influence on you in those years? Yeah,
because my parents were really young, and my dad decided to move to the city because there wasn't a lot of jobs on the farm, so he moved to Richmond and got a job, and I sort of stayed back with my grandparents and lived on the farm with them.
Okay.
And then, you know, we went back and forth. I saw them. It's not like I never saw them, but I spent more time with my grandparents and here's another thing. My mom and dad were only like 16 and 17 when I was born. And so my grandparents were in their 30s. So my grandparents were actually in their 30s when they raised me into their 40s. So it's almost like I was that old before I had my first kid.
Well, that makes a little more sense. You said in some of the stuff you shared with me that your grandparents were a little upset about you coming along, but excited that you were there. Is that a fair assessment?
You know, if your 16-year-old daughter is all of a sudden pregnant, you're not too happy.
I would still say that's very true today.
Yeah.
So, all right. So you grew up on the farm. There was a little story I read about a red wagon.
Yeah, that was.
Tell us about the red wagon.
Well, you know, everybody used to have a red wagon, and there was I think it was called a rider. And you had the wooden slats on the side. You'd pull them out if you needed to put more stuff in. But I was watching on the farm, I had this guy, his name was Marshall. And Marshall always had a mule and a cart. And I looked at his cart, and it looked a lot like my red wagon. And I said, So I told my grandfather and I got together, and we took the tongue off the wagon and put some slats on it and hooked up my goat. I had a billy goat. And we put that up, and I would get on the cart and I'd lash him along. He'd carry me all around the farm. And if he got really ornery, sometimes I'd take a little ear of corn and hang it out in front of his face, and he'd try to nibble at it. And as he was going along, I could lead him wherever I wanted.
What's the ear of corn?
That was my transportation everywhere. And everybody got to know me for my goat cart.
Your goat cart, a literally goat cart. And that it's just like, when I read that, it sounds something just like out of like a children's book.
It was.
Like a little farm boy with this fishing pole with a corn attached to it, leading the goat.
Now, every now and then that goat would get tired. He was done, and he'd just take off running, and there's nothing I could do, and he would take a quick curve and just throw me in the cart rolling.
He figured out how to get rid of
But
me.
he figured out to get rid of me. It was usually at the end of the day, he was tired.
Yeah, I get it.
And then when I went to the city, and, people ask me what I did in the country because they're always sort of wondering what country people do. And I said, well, I ride around in my goat cart during the day, and they thought it meant go-kart.
Yeah.
So they thought I was really cool.
Yeah, that you had a go-kart.
But when they found out that I had a goat cart, they thought that was hilarious.
It's a little different. So where'd you go to school when you were in the farm?
Well, just they had local elementary schools, and then I would go back and forth from Richmond. So I actually would go to school in Richmond for school year, and then summers and any other holidays, I just stay back on the farm.
Okay.
And then by middle school, I stayed up in Richmond.
So how was middle school for you?
I was around 11, 12.
Yeah.
And that was actually pretty interesting because that's when I finally became a city person.
Okay.
You start to,
you grew up out of the country, huh?
I realized, hey, I'm starting to like the city because, you go hunting and you get a deer and you thought that deer tastes pretty good. But when you got to the city and you had that filet mignon, now that tasted good.
I bet.
And it didn't require not as much work as you had when you had to skin that deer and cut him up.
I understand.
So the city, you started realizing all the benefits. You could get most anything you wanted, anytime you wanted with very little effort.
Okay.
And, just a lot of stuff was available. And it made a big difference because when I started school, I started realizing, hey, I could actually do something other than be a farmer. And not that a farmer was bad, but it opened up a lot more avenues when we moved to the city.
Gotcha. So what'd your folks do?
My parents were, at that time, my dad worked for Sears, which was a real good job in those days. And my mom had stopped working and was just raising us.
Okay.
And then, I spent all, the thing that probably marked my middle school years was that's when I really started to get jobs that made money.
Okay.
And,
what were your early jobs?
Well, you did stuff like you delivered newspapers, you cut grass. And see, in those days you could, even though you were maybe only 12, 13, if you could sling a hammer, you could work construction.
Yeah.
There was no child labor laws.
Yeah. Especially in the South.
Yeah. They, as long as you could climb that ladder or carry a pile of 2x4s, you were fine to work.
Yeah. I got you. So middle school was okay.
Yep. Great time.
Nothing dramatic there.
Nothing dramatic. Probably the biggest thing was when I worked for this guy. His name was Mr. Barnett. And I'll always remember him because I worked in the area I lived in was mostly blue collar, white collar, but we lived near this one area that was sort of upper class. And it was easy to go get a job working for one of those guys. I could, Mr. Barnett had this house that was on this creek. There's a lot of creeks. And so his house would go down to the creek and he had his own little dam and a little pond and he had it landscaped. And he was one of the first people I met. He actually built a bank and had built several little chains in the area. So he was pretty wealthy. And, I'd be out working in his yard, weeding and stuff. He was like Mr. Miyogi, and I'd be in there working and cleaning stuff, and he'd come up and talk to me. And he would take me every now and then. He'd say, "Go, clean up a little bit," and we'd go to lunch, and he'd take me to a real nice restaurant. Places I'd never would be able to go. And I started realizing, man, this is nice.
Yeah.
A lot better than eating hamburger and hot dog.
Well, that's pretty cool taking a teenage worker.
Yeah, he sort of took a little liking to me. And I learned a lot of things from him. He'd always, I didn't quite understand what he was saying at the time because I was too young, but he'd always give me little pearls. And one of my favorites was he had a bunch of men had come over and they were sitting on his back porch. And he'd do this quite often. He'd have a group come over and they'd be wanting to borrow money or ask him business stuff. And he comes walking away, and he looked a little, you could tell he was concerned. And he waved from them, walk away, says, Bill, see that man up there? I said, yeah. He goes, I will never do any business with him. I said, why? He goes, well, he doesn't treat his wife right. And if a man doesn't treat his wife right, you don't want to do business with him. And I have found that to be one of the best business advices I've ever gotten.
Really?
Through the years. If I see a man and he doesn't treat his wife right, I know I don't want to do business with him.
Interesting.
And I've used that is, of many other things that he taught me, as a goal, and it's really worked well.
Now that I think about that, there's a lot of truth to that.
In fact, it was used on me in reverse. I had this one lady, she was a businesswoman, and she wanted me to lend her some money. And I thought the deal that she offered me was really good. And I said, all right. So I lent her the money and made a good about money back. And I asked her, and I said, hey, why, you could have asked a lot of people to get involved in this deal. Why'd you ask me? He says, because of the way you treated your wife. I knew you treated your wife nice. I knew you would treat me well. And I said, man, Mr. Barnett was right.
Absolutely.
So that's a good lesson I learned in middle school.
Business lesson at, 14 years old.
I know. He went on and helped me, like he knew I wanted to go to medical school. He had actually helped build one of the first HCA hospitals in Richmond. And he took me in and introduced me to the hospital administrator. I'll never forget his name, Wycliffe Line. Now, that is a name, man.
Yeah. Out of a book.
And and the hospital administrator looks at me. He says, you don't want to go into medicine. You want to be an administrator. That's where the money is. And at the time I thought, God, I wasn't thinking about money. I just want to do something really cool, be a surgeon, all that. And later on I realized he was exactly right. If you wanted to make money in those days, that was late 70s. You became a hospital administrator or got into the HCA corporation. Too bad I didn't have any money to invest in those days.
Yeah, I'm sure. But so that's not true today though, is it?
It might not be today, but it was then.
Really? The administrators made way more money than the doctors?
Oh yeah.
Huh.
You'd be amazed.
Okay.
Now, small hospital, maybe not, but the larger hospitals, they're making millions.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. So, all right, he took you over there when you were like a teenager?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I actually ended up working at that hospital on the nursing staff. It's funny, when I was in college, I would, during the summer, I had a job for the military. I was a programmer because I'd done a lot of computer programming in high school. And so I'd work that day job and I'd get off and I'd go to the hospital and work a night job on the nursing staff. And, if you're working basically all day, 5 days a week, you save a lot of money because you can't do anything.
Yeah. You ain't got nothing to spend on. You're working all the time.
I would sleep on Friday night, catch up on my sleep because I, didn't sleep much during the week. And then I'd have one night out and then I'd start again on Sunday. And working on that in that nursing staff, I learned a lot about the hospital.
And they let you do it without having
yeah, back then you didn't need a certification.
Okay.
I was a nurse's aide, but you didn't have to have formal classes.
Okay.
And, you started I was on the Code Blue team. I worked at ER. I'd help out in the surgery, all those things.
So how old were you?
17.
Okay.
17, 18.
So jump back to high school. How was high school? Because
You
just casually mentioned the military side, because this is intriguing to me. So what did you play sports in high school? How was high school?
Oh, I played basketball and football, ran track. But the big thing, I'd say the biggest event in high school for me was I had a teacher, and he was like, famous teachers you see on movies and stuff. He was that guy, Mr. Taylor, and he was an interesting guy. So I go into his Algebra 2 trig class. And that was a junior, senior level class I was taking as a sophomore. And he comes up to me. I'd always been called William up until that point. He says, Bill, you're going to go off to college. A lot of these people, they're just taking this class as a requirement. He says, I'm going to test you a little bit more. But he said, I think you can parlay your knowledge into some social benefits. I was like, I don't know what the hell he's talking about.
What class? What did he teach?
This is Algebra 2 trig.
Okay, got it.
And he says, you see them girls over there? And they were like seniors.
Okay.
He says, they could probably use some help with the homework. I was like, oh, okay. Well, Mr. Taylor taught me a lot about how to parlay your ability to do homework for social events.
That's
So
awesome.
I would do homework, and I got to go to every party and senior dance there was. So
Really?
he was very instrumental in teaching me how to negotiate life. And he taught a computer class. He had been in the military. He was a Navy. I don't know if they had SEALs at that time, but he was similar to that.
Okay.
And he had gotten out of the Navy, and he wanted to be a teacher. He was a math science teacher, and he taught classes down at at Virginia Commonwealth University at night, but they were computer classes that really were like the first of its kind, because this is like 76, 77.
Yeah, computers were as big as this room.
No, you either worked for the military, you worked for IBM or a big corporation. And he convinced the county to let him get some terminals, and he was going to teach us high school students how to program. And we were like a pilot program to see what we would do. And we actually wrote software for the county, for the state, and then the military hired me right out of high school.
Really?
And it's sort of, I call it low level programming for them. But, that's how that job paid for my college, because they would let me work and go to school at the same time.
Okay.
So I learned programming.
What were you doing this for?
For the Department of Defense. It was a supply depot in Richmond. It's called the Defense.
You're working for the DOD at 17 years old?
Yeah.
Okay. It's pretty cool.
It's sort of funny because when I'm working in all these computer places, I'm working all over the base. This base had everything from napalm to light bulbs. It had everything that the military needed. Most people don't know that in the United States, there's 5 of these depots, and they're all duplicates of each other.
Okay.
So that if someone is destroyed, the others can work, and everything the military needs is on that depot.
That's in Richmond?
One's in Richmond. Let's see. One's in Cincinnati. One's in San Diego. I can't remember all of them.
Yeah.
But they're all around the country. And you'd go into the base, just like going into any military installation. You pass through the gate, you park, you have to have an ID and stuff. But I got to be really good friends with the people at the security area because I was always working on the computers. And one day I had to get a new badge, and I knew back then you had to have a background and you had to have a certain tape. So I just put my own background and tape on there, which gave me the highest security clearance of the base. And they took the picture and gave it to me. I said, oh my God, they fell for it. So I could go anywhere on that base I wanted.
You're equivalent of a general walking around?
I had the same security clearance as the general.
Okay.
But, it was, and the general was always take me into his office. He was interesting in that I could tell he was ready. This was his like retirement job. Uh-huh. He'd already done all this stuff. He's going to do this job and leave. And on the wall, he had this picture, and it had this eagle, and then it had this little turkey. And whenever he'd get frustrated, he'd point at that picture and say, Bill, hard to soar with eagles when you're surrounded by turkeys.
I like that.
So the general, Mr. Taylor, they sort of took me through high school and into college.
Okay. So where'd you go to college?
Virginia Tech.
Okay.
I thought I was going to be an engineer. And then when I was there, I thought, I don't know if I can hang out and do this stuff because all the guys I was in lab with and things. You ever watch Big Bang Theory?
Yeah.
That's who I was with.
Yep.
I was with all those guys. And I'd go out on a date and they'd go, "You with a girl?" And I go, "Yeah, that's what you do when you're 19 years old."
Yeah.
And I realized
you're a little more social than most engineers.
Yeah, I realized that wasn't for me. So I realized too, at the time I was working on a lot of equipment. I actually had worked on some neural networks, and I was working on trying to do some stuff with voice recognition. The computer power was very minimal back then. Now that's easy to do.
Yeah.
But in the late 70s, early 80s, there was the computer speeds, the hardware wasn't there. And I realized it'll be 20 30 years before this comes around. So I looked at medicine, and medicine right then was growing.
Okay.
And I realized that was going to be a better fit for me because I went into it and the technology just exploded and everything. I sort of grew up with it. Now,
what did you get your degree in?
I ended up getting my degree in biochemistry, biology, and chemistry.
Okay.
And
nice.
then with an emphasis in computer science. But then I went on, but here's the thing, that computer science helped me the rest of my life. See, when I was in med school, all the professors wanted me in their labs because I would program their computers to do the data analysis. And when I was in residency, same thing. And then when I got into my professional life, I started my office as paperless from the get-go. And that's because I knew enough about computers. Now everybody's paperless, but in 95, I think I was the first paperless office in this area for sure.
Nice. So where'd you end up going to med school?
Medical College of Virginia, which was in Richmond, which I sort of had an in there when I was in high school. They would have classes down at the medical school on Saturday mornings. And so I would go, you had to get up Saturday morning. You'd been out to a football game the night before, had a great night, and you'd have to sort of wake up, sort of shake the cobwebs out and head downtown and go to the class. And I took like anatomy classes and I took a genetics class, but the anatomy class is the one that sort of pushed me into plastic surgery.
Okay. So you did, where did you, was it a purely business decision you decided to go into medicine?
No, I liked it because I realized that, the problem with like engineering and stuff, and I'm not saying anything bad about engineers. It's just that you don't have a lot of contact with people.
Yeah.
And I realized that wasn't for me.
Yeah.
Because I could sit in that lab and be programming away, and I'd realize, man, I can't do this the rest of my life. And in medicine, you got a little more interaction with people. And then you have some technical stuff too. So it sort of gave me what I needed.
So you say you took an anatomy class and that kind of steered you into the more surgeon direction?
Yeah. When we would go on Saturday mornings to do the cadaver lab, there would be all kinds of medical students and residents there. And the plastic surgeons, they were just the coolest. You go up and they were doing all these elaborate dissections, and they just seemed like really neat guys. Okay. And I would hang out with them, and I realized, this is sort of what I want to do.
Okay. So after med school, where'd you go?
To LSU for general surgery residency.
All right. Ole Miss game this weekend, by the way. Ole Miss LSU. Good luck, sir.
Well, when I was leaving medical school, my professor said, "Hey, Bill, you've been here all your life, been in Virginia. You need to go somewhere else?" So when I was applying to residencies, I looked at LA, Dallas, New Orleans, and Tampa. I thought, those are pretty big cities. I'll go somewhere sort of different.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought for sure I was going to be in LA.
Okay.
I said, I'm going to be in LA. I'm going to be Doc Hollywood.
Yeah. I'm going to see that.
I'm going to be out there having a good time. And on the interview trail, you meet a lot of other guys doing the same thing you're doing. And one of them said, "Hey, Bill, my roommate is in New Orleans right now, and you ought to go and do your interview there." Cause I was already going to I'd finished. I wasn't going to do any more interviews. He says, "You'll have a good time." And I was in Dallas at the time. And at the time for $69, you could get a flight from Dallas to New Orleans. So I go, okay. So I fly over. I get there and I meet Drew, and Drew says, he takes me out around town on Friday night. The interview's on Saturday. And he's introducing me to all these people. And we go to this bar. It's called the Parkway Tavern. And he's introduced me to all these his female classmates. And we're out there dancing and drinking, like you do in New Orleans. You're always going to have a good time. And somehow or other, we were dancing, and I fall into the band. Okay. And the singer, she's looking at me sort of mean, and she picks me up, pushes me back. And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry. And I said, "I didn't mean to." Next morning, I go to the interview, and I'm feeling a little rough, but I can make it. So I go to the interview, and the singer was one of the chief residents.
The singer of the band?
Yeah. And she looks at me, "You're that guy." I said, yeah. She goes, "You're going to make it here." we like people like you. And I ended up having a great interview, having a great time. And I realized that was my place I had to be.
That's where you wanted to be.
And New Orleans was totally different than Virginia.
So, but it was LSU's residency is in New Orleans?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, they have a general surgery residency in New Orleans. There's also one in Shreveport, but it's a different LSU.
Okay. Got it.
And I ended up in LSU for a number of reasons, but one of them because I had a great interview. But they had a plastic surgery program, so I figured if I finished general surgery there, I could just stay in there.
Did you know at that time you wanted to do plastic surgery?
Oh yeah, I knew that. And then
why? Because it was a cool thing to do, or what?
Well, I knew it was technically a little more challenging.
Okay.
Now, general surgery was challenging physically and emotionally because, man, you got people coming in. You're at Charity Hospital. You're getting 8-10 gunshot wounds a day. And these people, some of them, they're going down, and you got maybe 1 minute to save them. And so there was that stress, but it's sort of exciting at the same time. Somebody's coming in and you revive them and you save them. I mean, that's a great feeling.
Mm-hmm.
But also you have, people who, I mean, these people can die. General surgery, people, it's not like plastic surgery. Nobody dies in plastic surgery. You're executing a technically difficult procedure. So there's no stress. It's just a little more, more finesse and a little more, technical ability. But in general surgery, it's, you're dealing with the real deal.
So tell us about that residency at, Charity Hospital in NOLA.
That was something I feel like, people are deprived now that Charity Hospital is closed down. That place was the best learning experience you could ever have. I mean, you saw anything and everything.
And you worked in the ER?
I worked
over?
We worked all over. You worked when you're a general surgery resident, then it's not the same anymore. You worked the ER, you worked OBGYN, you worked psych, you worked anesthesia, you did orthopedic surgery, neurosurgery, vascular surgery, cardiac surgery, you did everything.
Okay.
So by the time you finish, you've been exposed to most any type of medicine there was. And, and that was a good training because when I went into plastic surgery, then I knew what to expect from the other guys. Like if an orthopedic surgeon needed me to help him with an injury, I knew that injury and I knew what I needed to do. But, that was back in the big reconstruction days. Now, you don't do a lot of reconstruction anymore, no matter what you do as a plastic surgeon. But that's a whole different story. But the general surgery thing was, it made you realize the frailty of life.
Yeah.
I mean, you see when you see somebody die, it changes your life.
Yeah, I could see that. And so for those listening, Charity Hospital in New Orleans was where basically if you don't have insurance and or gunshots or anything bad, it wasn't you had a great experience there, but it wasn't the high end hospital. I don't know how to describe it, but you got all the bad stuff. Well, tell us give me one of your stories from there.
It would be like, what you see on TV. Yeah. The drama series. It's very similar to that.
Okay. So I'm picturing George Clooney.
Every day, every hour. And you might see George Clooney.
I mean, what was that show he was on?
ER.
ER. There you go. Dr. Bill, same thing.
Well,
all right.
There's a lot of them, but I'd have to say some of them are really sad, but probably the best stories that I can remember are the ones where somebody would come in. Sometimes they had cancer, sometimes they had an injury, and you cured them or treated them, and they did well. There's some that you probably too risque to talk about at this venue, but it was you saw a lot of crazy stuff from New Orleans.
We're open. It's a podcast, Bill. You can talk about whatever you want.
Well, all right. This is a funny one. During Mardi Gras, crazy stuff happened.
Yep, we've been right on a float together.
Well, I'm sitting there, and there's a list of back then there wasn't computerized, so there's papers, and it'd be sitting in a tray. And the tray would have on the top of the list, on the top of the paper, it would say what their main complaint was. Many years ago, the format was the person would walk up and tell the nurse what their problem was, and they had to say it in one sentence. The nurse would transcribe that down.
Okay.
And then she would look at them, or he would look at them and say what he thought was going on. And then they'd put them in the box, and we'd sort of go through them and try to pick out, get them back into the emergency room. Well, I go up and I see one that says, lizard up my butt.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going, all right, I got to bite on this one. What the hell is this? So I go out and I call the guy's name. He comes walking up and he's got these chaps on with his bare butt hanging out. And I'm like, come on back. No, he walks from it on and there's a lizard tail coming out of his butt. And what had happened was he passed out and one of his buddies had shoved a lizard up his butt.
Crap.
So we had to get that out.
Okay.
Then there's one.
I'm not sure I want to know how you did that, but all right.
No, you don't want to know.
Okay.
And then you'd have one where broke my penis. And you're like, okay, come on back. And sure enough, this guy was his senior year in college. He was having at it. They didn't have Cialis back then.
Uh-huh.
And girl comes down on him and breaks his penis.
Ooh.
So we had to fix his penis.
Okay. And then I cringe thinking about that one.
Another one leaves in my bump. And in New Orleans, your bump, if you're a female, is your vagina.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, I got to see this one. She comes back and she had taken a potato and placed it intravaginally to hold her uterus up to keep it from falling out. And she had left it there so long, leaves had grown out. So we had to retrieve that and fix her uterus. But these are just ER things. The most serious ones were in the operating room.
Too bad the cameras can't see Abby's face right now.
Yeah. My favorite memory in the OR though was Pam. All right. And you could never do this now, but back then I dressed Pam up as a medical student, and she'd come in with me on like we'd be doing an appendectomy at 2 a.m. And I trained her how to scrub in and keep sterile. And when I was doing this appendectomy, this is before we had laparoscopes. She had to actually make a cup and pull out, and a little appendix pops out. She goes, honey, what is that? And the nurse looks at me and says, when did the medical students call you honey, Dr. Burden? I looked at her. She goes, oh, I mean, what is that, Dr. Burden?
I could see that right now. With that's awesome.
So she was with me a lot she would take call with me sometimes.
And Pam is your bride.
Yep.
And she was a pharmaceutical rep?
She was a pharmaceutical rep. And she had actually, most people don't know this, but Pam had been in nursing school.
Okay.
And she just decided it wasn't for her. So she had some science background and sort of had a good feel for the hospital. So she wasn't like somebody off the street that didn't know anything. So I would take her on call with me and she would have a great time.
Now, I find this a little intriguing. Another thing you can't do today, but there was a bar y'all all congregated at across the street. Am I correct about that?
Joe's was world famous.
Okay.
My first year, I was, I wasn't used to New Orleans. You in Richmond, if you walked out of the hospital in your lab coat, they might fire you. You better be an emergency. And you didn't walk off the OR floor without a scrubs. Everybody was very formal, shirt and tie, white coat. And I was up in my call room and one of the guys comes up and says, Bill, come on, let's go over to Joe's. I was like, man, I'm on call. I was sitting there reading my book, waiting for the trauma to start. He goes, oh, come on, man, you can come over with us. So, all right, I'll walk over to Joe's. Everybody's over there in their scrubs and coats, out on the street, drinking beer, going in and out of Joe's. And everybody's noticing I don't have a beer. And they go, Bill, get you a drink. I said, I'm on call, man. They go, come on, man, you can get you one. And they said, well, who's your attending? I said, well, Dr. Panetta. They go, well, ask him. He's right there. He does a shot and says, hey, Bill, get you a drink.
Only in New Orleans.
Only in New Orleans.
That's awesome. So, all right, you finish up residency. What was your path then?
Went to Gainesville for plastic surgery. That was a lot of fun. I had been to a big city and I wanted to go back to sort of a university kind of atmosphere. Gainesville's very university oriented. You don't have a lot of trauma and stuff. And, I actually had a real good time there. It was different though. If I could give anybody advice, if you've been in a big city and you've gotten a little older, because by this time I'm now 30 years old, when you go to a college town, there's not a lot to do for a 30-year-old.
Yeah.
So Pam and I we would go out and people would look at us and go, we were like old to them because they were all 19, 20, 21. And it was a little boring socially, but we had a good time otherwise.
Were y'all married yet?
We got married halfway through.
Okay.
So the first year not married.
So she went with you?
Yeah, she went with me.
And you did 2 years in Gainesville?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So.
And while we were in Gainesville, Pam's family's from New Orleans. So we would drive when I have a weekend off, we'd go back to New Orleans. And so from Gainesville to New Orleans, Destin's about a halfway point.
Okay.
So we'd stop here maybe one night or sometimes just stop and look at things. And I realized this is where I wanted to be.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
When everybody's in New Orleans, they vacation here and I
Sure.
sort of knew it. But then as I would stop here, I realized, God, this is such a nice place. And, this was like 93, 94, so it hadn't quite grown yet.
Yeah.
But you could tell it was getting ready to.
Yep.
And I said, I better jump on this. And I was very lucky.
So you came to the Destin area right after Gainesville?
Right after residency, fellowship.
Okay. So you got all school, all residency done. Y'all packed up and moved to the beach.
Moved right here.
So what'd you do then?
Well, I worked out of the hospital for a long time, Fort Walton Beach Hospital. First 8 years, I took call, and I took call probably in a 12-month period, 8 of those months, because the other guys were more than happy to give me their call because they didn't really need the business, and I enjoyed it because I'd go in the ER, sew up somebody.
Were you doing general surgery
no,
or
plastic surgery?
All plastic still?
Yeah. And see, in those days, it was real important because that's how you built your business. See, like, I'll give you an example. It sounds strange, but you go to the emergency room. Let's say, John has a thumb injury he's hit it with a saw. You'll go in, fix his thumb, get him off ready. Now, you may never see a dime from that thumb injury.
Okay.
But a year later, he'll bring his wife in for a breast aug.
Okay. Okay. All right. That makes sense.
Because the breast aug means more to him than the thumb.
Yeah. I'll agree with that. But did you have an independent practice at that time too?
Yeah. I had my own practice. I got a little office. It's actually, it's interesting. Eye Center South has that office now, and they bought the whole office complex. But, Tom Crawford, had built this office complex. He's from Atlanta. And he was also working on, in Destiny, there's a little subdivision called Cayman Cove.
Yeah. He
actually had gotten that from, Odom and was developing it. And so he said, I couldn't get the bank to loan me any money or anything because I had no, prior history. So I had to go to the SBA, get a loan, and he looked at me and says, you're going to make it here. He says, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lend you the money to build that house. And when you finally get going a year or two, you can just pay me back. He said, I'll lend it to you just like you were getting a regular mortgage. I was like, man, that's pretty nice.
Yeah.
So he's built me my first house in Cayman Cove, gave me my first office, and then he was right. Within 3 years, I had enough business experience to show that I was income producing, and then the banks just lent me the money to mortgage the house and eventually buy the land to build the office I'm on now.
Okay. So where'd you go from there? How'd you get into the office you're at now?
That's one of my favorite stories. I'd been going up and down 98 looking for land for about 2 years.
So this is when? Mid-90s?
97, 98.
Okay. So still not really developed this side of mid.
And I was just struggling because some people wanted to lease me the land. Some parts I wasn't quite sure if it was in a good position. Some of it it was either too small or too big. And I happened to be going by down 98 and I saw the piece of land that we're on now was up for sale. And then just before then, they had a sign up saying it was going to be a Japanese steakhouse.
Okay.
And
Osaka.
I was going to get my hair cut, and I was downtown at the, it was a dental office with, on the first floor, and the second floor had some, offices in it. So I'm getting my hair cut there, and I walk out, and right across the hall is Legendary, just a little office. I knock on the door. Don't hear anybody. I knock again. All of a sudden, come on in. So I walk in, and the guy's just one desk. Guy's on the phone. He says, "Have a seat." So I sit down on the couch, and he's talking, and I says, "Okay." And he hangs up. He says, "Typical realtor, what can I do you for?" And I go, "Well, I was looking for a piece of land, and I saw that land where the steakhouse was going to go, and I was wondering about it." He goes, he just blank stare. He goes, "You're not going to believe that. Believe what I'm about to tell you. I just hung up the phone with Mr. Pack, the man who owns that land, and he really wants to sell it." I said, "I'll buy it."
Okay.
So just like that, bought that piece of land, and everybody told me I was crazy, that it was way too much money. Why would I want to do that? And now I'm in a good position.
All worked out pretty well.
Worked out really well.
So when did you actually move into that building?
We started construction on it about 2 years later, because it took me 2 years working with the state. When you build on the surgery center, you have to go through the state. They have it's called ACA. I can't remember what it stands for, Healthcare Administration, something like that. And we got the permitting done, and we started the construction, and we finished it in 2002.
Okay.
So I've been in that building for 23 years now.
Ooh, God bless you. So business started rocking and rolling in the early 2000s?
Oh, yeah. This area started to grow, so we started seeing more people. But I'm going to tell you, it's funny how life goes for you. See, I used to do mostly reconstruction, and the way I sort of made my name in the area was I did a lot of breast reconstruction.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody in the area, basically from Mobile to Panama City, had done breast reconstruction. So it was a lot of pent-up demand for it. So I'd have people come from all those areas, and I do their breast reconstructions. And I think we did a very good job at it. And what happened was people stopped getting mastectomies. People started wearing safety belts, so I didn't get facial fractures anymore from car accidents. OSHA started cracking down on workplace injuries, so I didn't do the hand injuries I used to. So that market was shrinking naturally. Mm-hmm. But I had done all this reconstruction. All these women who had survived it wanted me to do their facelifts and their tummy tucks and all those things, and also some of their family members. Mm-hmm. So it just sort of transitioned from a reconstruction practice to a cosmetic practice just by sort of word of mouth. But it all started with the reconstruction business.
That all kind of came naturally, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And so next thing you know, all I'm doing is cosmetic surgery, not because I don't like doing insurance work, but just that was the demand. Yeah. And so you sort of have to follow the market
one of the
demand.
only doctors that I've ever heard say that. You don't like doing insurance work.
No, I actually like the challenge, but it's just, unfortunately, you can't do both.
Yeah.
Because
too much.
Well, it's like this. If you're doing cosmetic surgery, you're not in the hospital. And if you're doing reconstructive surgery, you got to be at the hospital. And so it sort of divides your time, and you can't do both.
Gotcha. That makes sense. All right. So you made full transition into cosmetic naturally, sounds mm-hmm. like. Well, what point did you decide to, or write, when you wrote the book? Because you wrote a book on breast augmentation, right?
Oh, yeah. What I did, I realized that I needed to write some things to show people that I knew more than the average doctor. See, most people, when they see that a surgeon or a physician has written a book on the topic, they gives you some sort of mm-hmm. credence.
Yeah.
And so I said, I need to write this down because some of the stuff I do is very esoteric. Very few people do it. So I wrote the book on that. But I wrote a small book. I didn't want it to be real big. I wanted somebody to be able to read through it and not be very difficult for them.
Yeah.
Then I did one on Brazilian butt lift and then one on facelifts.
Okay.
And those 3 procedures have become the biggest ones we do.
Okay. So when did you write the first one?
It's been a while now, probably about 6-7 years ago.
Okay.
And then I wrote one a year for the next 3 years.
Okay.
I need to write another one now.
Well, it makes sense. You know, I've never asked you why you actually wrote the books. I read, let's say I flipped through the breast dog one.
Mm-hmm.
It's
very popular.
Yeah. Well, but I know there's some technical side of it, but most people, male or female, are not going to go read a medical journal about, you know, cosmetic surgery and pick their doctor.
Yeah. They just want to see, a lot of people, I wrote it more to be informative. So if somebody had some ideas, wanted to know about it, they could read it. It's not a technical book on like a surgeon would read.
Right.
It's more for someone who wants to know about the procedure, but doesn't want to get into the blood and guts of it.
Gotcha. Okay. So things are going well. You are, y'all made it. How was a downturn for you guys? Like the 08, 09?
You know, about that time, there was also, all right, it's going to sound, remember the BP oil spill?
Yeah. Right after, you know, for me, it felt like a bit more impactful for me or us.
The BP oil spill brought in how many $1 billion?
Oh yeah. Billions. A lot.
Well, I can't tell you how many, BP oil spill rhinoplasties, breast dogs, and tummy tucks I did. People would get their
that free money.
They get that money that I had them coming in from New Orleans, all over the place.
Really? And
so we really we got through that time because of other factors outside the area.
Okay. So you have a famous map in your office. Do you still have the map, the world map?
We finally took it down, but it's pretty extensive.
Yeah. I mean, is that all word of mouth or
word of mouth? But here, and to be intellectually honest, what it is a lot of this area, because we have so much military, they go all over the world, and they might be in Osaka, Japan, and one of the guys living in Japan, his wife may be talking to someone else's wife, and they'll say, well, where'd you get yours done? Well, I got it done in Fort Walton. Oh, well, we like going over to Fort Walton. So they fly into Fort Walton, we do their surgery.
Okay.
Or when they're on their rotation at Eglin, they get it done. So I have patients from Alaska, England, you know, a lot of them that are word of mouth from patients of mine who were here but moved to other areas.
Gotcha. So you clearly have a very successful practice. What has changed, let's say, since oil spill in your world of cosmetic surgery? I know you've added some things to the services y'all offer.
I think the biggest thing in the last 5 years has been people are really getting skinny. Whether it's from the shot or whether just eating better, everybody has slimmed down and they're getting more, you know, muscular, lean. And what happens is some of them have a little residual, like may have a little love handle maybe, or they have a little extra on their thighs.
Skin, saggy skin or fat.
Or they'll have maybe like a woman's lost. I have a lot of women come in and have lost 100 pounds.
Yeah.
Well, they got loose skin on the tummy, so do a tummy tuck, or they might have breast lifts. So all this weight loss has given us a lot of surgeries to do to correct the after effects of weight loss.
Okay.
So I used to do, when I first started, maybe 30 breast lifts a year. Now I do 300.
Really? Not augmentations.
Breast lifts.
Lifts. Okay.
And I used to do about 450 breast augmentations a year. Now I do about 250. And I used to do, very rarely did I do any fat grafting to buttocks. Now I do at least 1 to 2 Brazilian butt lifts a week.
Okay.
Everybody wants what it is, they've lost that weight, and so they've lost a little bit of the fat in the behind. but they may have a little bit in the love handles or in their hips, on thighs. And so we'll transfer it, and it gives them that cute little round shape, but nice little trim, waist and thighs.
So the Brazilian butt lift, you don't put something in there. You take fat from other parts of the body?
Right. We take fat from one area that's in the excess and put it in the buttocks to give it a little more rounding.
Okay. All right.
So that's becoming really one of the more popular procedures, again, because people are losing weight. And if you lose a lot of weight, women tend to lose a little bit of that bottom behind.
Over your years, what have been the biggest, when you've had problems or someone's had problems, reactions to lipo, whatever, what are your biggest problems?
I'd say the biggest problems are just sometimes we don't quite hit that home run, and you might have to do a little touch up here.
Gotcha.
But we generally don't have a lot of problems.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, it's most of the. I'd say the one that bugs me is you'll do this beautiful facelift, and about a year and a half later, sometimes they'll get a little bit of laxity back on that neck, and it's just because the skin gets loose again.
Okay,
but I've been working on it's a device called Renuvion to help offset that, and it's been helping.
Okay.
I rarely get that anymore.
So what are some of the new techniques that you have?
Probably the newest thing we have now is the Renuvion device, and that is an energy device that makes the skin shrink a little bit. You get about 20% shrinkage. And
what does it use?
You use it the two places I use it the most are the neck and a younger person who wants a little liposuction, but is worried the skin's going to be loose. And in the arms, because a lot of times women will get a little fat on the back of the arms, but they don't want to liposuction it and get loose skin. So you'll use that Renuvion there, and it'll give them a really pretty arm.
So how is it applied?
It's just like the liposuction cannula. It's a little probe that you put in under the skin and apply the energy internally.
Okay. Interesting. So y'all have a whole skincare cosmetic section too, other than just cosmetic.
In fact, we're just getting ready to probably get a new laser too. There's a lot of good technology coming out now. There was about almost a 20-year period there where we just didn't get any good technology. The Renuvion is probably the only technology I've utilized in the last 10 years I thought was worthwhile. But some of the new lasers coming out are going to be really good for helping people with their skin.
Okay. Nice.
So that'll be, we'll get that by the end of the year, and we'll be using that.
Do you advertise this stuff when you get it?
I should. I don't as much as I should because we just have so
I'm
much.
sure those machines are cheap.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot more than a G-Wagon.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Put things in perspective real quick for everybody.
Medical devices are very expensive.
Well, you hear about, I do feel like, I know you're a very tech savvy guy, and the acceleration of technology today, there's all kinds of people that have podcasts out there, shows, whatever, about AI, that's the big thing today. But I feel like that acceleration of the technology would bleed into multiple, industries, and especially yours, of what people could do. People wanting to look better isn't going away.
No.
Anytime soon. I think that's more prevalent since the, 80s, when, there's all kinds of things out there like, Viagra and stuff that let people go into older age and still having some good times.
Yep.
You told me before the show, we were talking offline, that you're getting a lot more mature people, if you will, come in.
It's just amazing how many 65, 75, and even up to 85-year-olds that we see that are in great health. I mean, that sounds crazy, because when I was in resident, if you operated on somebody over 65, you were taking the family's inheritance, and they were going to be dead in 2 years.
Yeah.
Now you tell a 65-year-old that, they'll get mad. They say, I got 30 more years left in me.
I love that. That's a good thing.
And you're seeing a lot of people at older ages in incredibly good shape. And no cardiovascular problems. They're just getting older with a little saggy skin, or they just want to look a little bit better.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to see it. It's inspiring to me, because I'm hoping I'll be right there with them.
I'm with you. I want to, try to keep it looking good for my beautiful bride. She looks way better than me. You're kind of in the same boat. No offense, sir. So let me punt on you. You are an artist with your work, but you also are a very talented musician. you just delve into so many things. How does that come about? Is it natural? Do you practice at some of the stuff? I mean, he has this chalkboard in his house that Bill does beautiful pictures and menus on and stuff. Well, and I just think you're an extremely talented person. So how does that come about?
I think what happens is you never lose that desire to learn. And so I knew I wanted to do some music. So I had, Pam got well, Hans is no longer with us. Hans passed away, but Hans came in and taught me guitar.
Okay.
And it was sort of fun because it made me start thinking about harmonies and music. I'm not a natural musician because I have a little hearing deficit in one of my ears, so it throws off my hearing a little bit. So I have to sort of think about it more than I can hear it. But I started thinking about the music, and then I said, I'll write a little love song for my wife. So I wrote a little song for her, and Hans helped me put it to music. And then, just little things like that. One thing leads to another. Like, drawing, I used to do a lot of mechanical drawing. And then I realized, you know what, I probably ought to start drawing more stuff that's like, people and things, and started drawing objects, and I sort of got the feel for it. And then I like computer graphics. So I started doing things on the computer. Now you can, with all the software, you can really make some beautiful work. So I think just one thing leads to another, and you just don't ever lose that curiosity to try to do something different.
So you do study at it and work at it.
And it's like you and I and wine. Yeah. I mean, think about when we first started, did we even know what the difference between a Cabernet?
No, not really.
And now we know all the wines because we studied it.
Yeah.
And we go to the places and we enjoy the stories they tell us.
I'm no different than you in college. I was drinking Mad Dog 2020.
Yeah. Whatever, that Cella Lambrusco.
Yeah, like a $5 bottle of red. Didn't know any different. But, you've spoiled me, Dr. Bill. I had to go learn it.
Oh, yeah.
You actually have your level some?
Level 2 Sauvignon.
Okay. All right. See, very sophisticated. So where's the future of cosmetic going, do you think?
I think it's going to go to more of a maintenance and preventative maintenance. See, we waited till everything was sort of broke and then you fixed it.
Okay.
Now people are saying, okay, they've got a plan. They're going to start at maybe just something simple at 20, maybe some skincare, some, medical grade, maybe some Botox, some fillers. And then when they get in their 30s to maybe a little more, then maybe they might step it up to some surgeries if they need it. In the 40s, it's going to be to repair the effects of aging and having babies, your mommy makeovers. And then your 50s is going to just continue, and people are just going to do maintenance. Like I just did a third facelift on an 80-year-old who I did her facelift at 60 and 70.
Okay.
And I said, well, you got to tell me what at 80, why are you doing this? She goes, because I never get tired of looking good. She goes, I'm going to live to be 90. And she says, I have great grandchildren. And my great-grandchildren love hanging out with me because I don't look like the crypt keeper.
Yeah.
And she, had a nice little modern hairstyle, very nice, stylish clothes, and she looked appropriate. See, if you're 80 years old and you haven't done anything and you try to wear clothes like a 40-year-old, you're going to look a little out of place.
Yeah.
And so she just looks appropriate for her age. In her mind, she's going to be 40 forever.
Good for her. I love it.
But I think that's where everything's headed, maintenance.
Yeah. Do you ever think there's a time, or have you had clients where you've just said it's too much?
Yeah. Yeah. You have to stop people sometimes.
Yeah.
And you know what? I got to tell you.
Do you think it's an addiction to some people?
No, it's just that it's in our human brain. It's real common to say, oh, that's so good. More has got to be better. Yeah. You have that one shot of tequila. One more has got to be better. Mm-hmm. Maybe not.
Bill, you're describing an addiction.
You're right. Okay. So let me back that up a little bit.
I'm just messing.
So what it is, they think that if they feel so good about it, that maybe if I do a little bit more, and I'll say, no, you're good for now. I'm very good about stopping people and say, we'll see in 5-6 years.
So do you, and thank you for that. I was curious. You know what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. you see the lady.
Because we see some crazy stuff
Yeah.
on TV.
Well, that's probably where the perception of what. Oh yeah, I've seen that like once, but
Yeah.
you know, I guess there's there's in any industry, you know, there's A pluses and then there's C's.
Yep.
But that's probably the botch thing. Is it dramatic? But you see people that just look stretched, and it's almost like you've gone too far.
They went too far.
And I think the like yourself, because I know some people that you have worked with, the more natural it looks.
Yeah. You don't want to distort anybody.
Yeah.
And I think that's the new thing. Like I will tell you about 5 years ago, I told some of the industries that I work with, I said, y'all are pushing products too far now. Like I'll give you an example, like lip fillers.
Mm-hmm.
I said, look, you're going to push this too far, telling all these people to put these large volumes in, and it's going to come back and bite you in the butt. Oh no, you don't know what you're talking about. People want this. I'm saying, well, I'm just telling you, you're going to wish you hadn't. Sure enough, this past year, everybody's getting their fillers dissolved and not getting, and that industry went down 40% this past year because they overdid it. And they've even, some of the, people, the managers in that industry have come to me and said, we should have listened to you.
Yeah. I don't want my lady looking like a catfish.
No.
I mean,
and so I think people, the more is better is going away now.
Well, I think your point of maintenance, you know, we talked about like hormone therapy. I mean, that's become more common. You told me you got a hyperbaric with
infrared.
You believe in the infrared?
Oh yeah. I think there's certain technologies that have really panned out, and I think the infrared is one. Some of the IV therapies, and I think the hyperbaric is going to really help a lot of people. And in fact, I got to start my diving soon, because I was reading articles that if you just do it on a regular basis, it can help with future dementia.
Yeah, well, I've heard that, and I know of 2 local people whose kids had, you know, slight disabilities, and they've done the hyperbaric, and it's dramatically changed their brain function. And
I think we're going to see more and more of that.
Yeah. Well, let me know when it's ready, because I'm a fan. I could knock out 2 things at once:
Yep.
You know, red light therapy and my hyperbaric, because I've done the hyperbaric, and I feel like it helps you at a cellular level, and you feel better.
Oh yeah, and I'm not saying this as a plug. I'm just saying our hyperbaric has infrared, and we're actually, I think we're the only ones in the area that have that. Yeah. So you can get 2 for 1.
Well, you should plug it.
Yeah,
it's okay. And when people listen, I want them to come see you. You're a great person. Any other new technologies you can think of that are coming out in your world?
No new technologies at this time. I think we're at a plateau, but I will be willing to bet that in the next year or 2, we're going to see more of the intravenous things. We're going to see more stuff, you know, like how you and I have talked about NAD. I mean, that was a big one.
Yeah.
But
you're a believer.
I'm a believer. It's going to be a couple of years, but there's going to be some new stuff that's going to come out.
Yeah. What about the peptides?
I think they're big, but right now.
Well, they're big right now.
But I think it's like when they first started doing, different IV therapies. Some people did real well, some not so well, because they haven't quite refined the treatments yet. And I think with the peptides, in another 3 to 5 years, and that was what I was going to tell you, was the peptides, when they get the purification correct, they get the dosages correct. See, like hormone replacement therapy back in the 70s and 80s, we all knew about hormone replacement therapy, but they didn't have the dosages correct, the sequencing correct. They had a lot of side effects, a lot of people getting tumors, liver disease, all this stuff. And now they know what the appropriate doses are. They know what to follow. I think the peptides are going to be the same thing. At first, we're going to see some people have some adverse effects because they don't know quite the dosing yet. But once they get it down and they get the routes to, whether to do it intravenous, intramuscular, or in the joint, once they get these little details worked out, we're going to really see that take off.
You see that replacing some? I know there's stem cells for, like, in the orthopedic world, some of the surgery procedures?
I don't see them replacing procedures that are, what you call it, where the damage is done.
Okay.
I can see it in early disease states. It'll work.
Okay.
But like, if you tear a tendon, there's no way you got to fix it.
No injection that's going to fix that. Yeah.
But if you got like a wear and tear issue and you want to sort of build back up, I think that's where it's going to shine.
You made a comment about, people are, my hope would be, you use the word skinnier, thinner, but also eating healthier. My hope would be eating healthier as America as a whole would be part of that. Are you a fan of what RFK is trying to do and fix some of the health of America?
It is so obvious. I mean, whether some people don't like RFK, whether you like him or not, that's not the issue. The issue with him, I guess what he has brought to light is for the last 20, 30 years, we have not done a good job with our food in this country.
Yeah.
And he's absolutely right. There's too many additives, too many things we're eating that we shouldn't be eating. And most people who are healthy today sort of saw that 10, 20 years ago and had to pay the little extra money to get the organic, had to get the non-preservatives. And you're seeing those people are really healthy. That's what's happened in this country. Half the population is the sickest people on the planet, and the other half are the healthiest on the planet. Yeah. So they say, so sort of the two put us like average. But the people who have done what RFK is saying, they're the healthy ones.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's obvious that something needs to be done. The devil's in the details, but I think him trying to bring the light that we got to get rid of a lot of the things that has destroyed our food supply, he is going to make us healthier.
I agree 100%. And I'm glad you say that because, that's coming from somebody that kind of makes a living off of people not being as healthy as they could be in some aspects. I know that's not your line of thinking, but cosmetics fixes some of that and can be a quick fix. But for me, I haven't had McDonald's in I don't know how long, and I grew up eating it. I grew up going, Wendy's my favorite. I eat McDonald's quarter pounder a day, and I feel like shit for 2 days.
That's because
it's like I haven't done it in a while, but they're still good. They taste good. Well, but I guess President Trump eats it all the time.
And I think what the difference is when you and I were younger, definitely when I was younger, they didn't have the additives they have now.
Yeah, and the preservatives.
And now, when I go into a McDonald's, and I used to work at McDonald's when I was a kid. Yeah.
When'd you work at McDonald's?
When I was in high school, I'll tell you a little side note. I was a nerdwad, so I read all the training manuals and did all the training that you're supposed to do. If you read through a McDonald's training manual, you know everything you need to know to run a business. That is the most efficient business you could ever have.
Really?
It's just like remember years ago, I think they're bringing it back. You remember if you read the Ritz-Carlton manual, it taught you the best way to treat people.
Mm-hmm.
The McDonald's was the most efficient. But when I worked there, I ate the burgers and I didn't remember that taste. And then when the last time I ate there, I said, this doesn't even taste anything like what I used to remember.
Yeah. It's sad in some aspects. And then, there's the affordability factors that there's some people, can't afford anything but McDonald's, and that's why they continue to be successful. So what does the future hold for Dr. Bill Burden?
Well, I got a few more years left in me for surgery, but my biggest thing now is not really business. The thing that you learn as you get a little older, I spent way too much time working. I need to have more fun hanging out with George and everybody else.
I've never seen you ever have a problem. I know you are one of the hardest workers and one of the kindest human beings I know.
Well, thank you.
I've never seen you have a problem having fun. Maybe that's just because I'm around you for fun time.
But you start to realize that this life is when you get to the more than halfway point, you start to realize you got to start enjoying it.
Are there any other business ventures that you're excited about or regrets you want to share?
No, I think what I really want to do, and I think this is not a unique idea, but I want to start working with my kids so that I can help them with their businesses so that as we get older, they develop, don't make all the mistakes that I made,
Sure.
and that way they'll have an easier transition.
Yeah. Well, you spoke about some of your mentors, and I've had several in my life, and, it's a blessing that my dad's one of them. And, I think
Exactly.
you are one to all your kids. And I think that's amazing. I just hope I could live up to that for my girls.
You will. Cause
because
what'll happen is when they get a little older, they'll start figuring where they want to go, and then you'll start sort of helping them out. And next thing you know, they're doing what they need to do.
Love it. I love it. Well, your kids are amazing too. All right. So this is beyond the closing table. That's why we always talk about people's lives and life lessons learned. But I like to ask people, give me your best and or worst real estate closing experience.
Probably, I tell you, the best closing experience I ever had was probably on my Gulfront property.
Okay.
It went so smooth.
Love it.
I didn't see, who was it that did it? Was it, I was thinking it was Meade.
Okay. Mike Meade.
Mike
Fort
Meade.
Walton.
Yeah.
Giving props to competition.
Yeah. They made that process really easy. I've always had good closings.
Good. Well, that's good. You remember when you have a bad one.
Yeah.
Don't worry. They'll come right to the front real quick.
Oh, everything has always gone smooth. I've always thought that's a good business to be in.
Yeah, well, everybody and their brother thinks it's a good business these days, especially after COVID, when Florida was on fire for real estate. We had a bunch of competition jump in down here, but that's all right. You got competition in your business too,
all the time.
Yeah. All right. So, Bill, thank you. I appreciate you coming on. Where can people find you?
Well, probably the easiest way is on the website, theplasticdoc.com, where they can see our phone number, 850-654-1194.
All right.
Or anybody can always email me it's drburden@theplasticdoc.com.
Look at that. Got his email address too. Anything we didn't cover you want to cover?
No, man, that was a great time, buddy.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate you being here, my friend. Yeah. You really are one of the kindest human beings I know. You're so generous to this community and to us. Thank you. Appreciate you being here, buddy.
Thank you.
Bye, y'all.